Boys, pay attention. That guy over there, do you see him? The lonely person sitting with a piercing gaze and a laser-focused focus. That's the Sigma male. A lone wolf among a sheep flock. He doesn't try to be like the other people, he's not like them. He has a unique style of play that he excels in. You've heard the murmurs, the rumors, and the stereotypes. It's time to face reality now. I'm going to provide you tips on how to spot a Sigma male in public. You might wonder, why? These aren't simply the characteristics of some mysterious individual, these may be your characteristics, buried and waiting to be found, since understanding the Sigma male could hold the key to realizing your potential. You may begin your path at the earliest opportunity after you identify them in yourself. They stroll by themselves. Now let's get started. Examine your surroundings. The majority of individuals are often socializing, laughing, and spending their time and energy with others while they are with someone. However, it isn't the Sigma male. They stroll by themselves. They can feel comfortable and whole without the presence of another person. They feel confident in themselves. They seem to be surrounded by an unseen force barrier that retains their energy rather than allowing outsiders to enter. But they're not alone, far from it. They like their alone time and feel at ease in their skin. How then do you recognize them? Easy. Seek out the men who feels most at ease in isolation. Maybe it's the guy in the coffee shop who sits in the corner and reads a book silently while everyone else in the place is talking and laughing. Alternatively, it can be the lone runner on the track, trying to outdo everyone since he has no one else to impress. Observe how the absence of a company doesn't appear to affect them. They don't constantly check their phone for texts or missed calls. They are not glancing about tensely, looking for approval from people. They appear to be very content with their privacy and engaging in their thoughts. Keep in mind that Sigma males who prefer to stroll alone are not inherently shy or antisocial. On the other hand, they can be as sociable and outgoing as anyone else. They simply don't require constant human company. They prefer quality over quantity. They choose their companions carefully, and they like their alone time as much as their social interactions. Therefore, consider this if you're sitting there thinking whether you could be a Sigma male. Do you enjoy spending time alone yourself? Do you find comfort in isolation as opposed to fear? If the response is yes, you may possess one of the essential characteristics of a Sigma male, and believe me when I say that this is something to be proud of. It's a strength rather than a weakness. Own it, then. He will quickly glance away from you. Look, nothing is more embarrassing than someone unable to maintain eye contact. It's a symptom of deceit, weakness, and insecurity. However, Sigma males are anything but weak, insecure, or dishonest. However, they won't stare into your eyes for too long. Why? For them, it's not a game. To establish authority or make a point, they don't have to look you in the eye. Sigma males won't cling to your face, instead, they will maintain eye contact long enough to convey attention and engagement. When it's convenient for them, they will break eye contact. They won't do so when it's uncomfortable or seems forced. And a significant power move at that. Observe their social interactions to identify this quality. When they're pondering or after they've delivered their point, do they maintain a steady glance but look away? Do they maintain eye contact while listening, but then break it off to consider what has been said? Whether they are gazing at you or away from you, do they appear at ease? If you know the answer to any of these questions, you probably know with whom you could be interacting. It's not about how long you can stare someone down, let me assure you, if you've been worrying about how often you maintain or break eye contact and what it says about you. It has to do with how easily you can maintain and break eye contact. The actual test is that, and Sigma males ace it every time. He is usually wearing something clean and professional. I'm not referring to the newest streetwear styles or ostentatious brand names. No, that kind of shallow thing doesn't appeal to Sigma males. That does not, however, imply that he is indifferent to his appearance. He does care, oh no. However, he considers appearance to be important, neat, and polished. Sigma males tend to dress modestly but elegantly. They won't be wearing flamboyant designs or bright colors. They probably have a large closet full of neutrals, such as black, white, gray, and navy, which are classic, adaptable, and suitable for almost every setting. But what's going on? Sigma males always wear clean clothing. Not one wrinkle, stain, or missing button. Because they are cared for, their garments appear well-maintained. Sigma males make the conscious decision to project an image of themselves as people who are meticulous and take care of how they look. They know that how they come across to others counts. Therefore, the next time you're out, observe the people that are walking by. Disregard those who are dressed in gaudy labels and trendy clothes. Rather, search for the one wearing uncomplicated, tidy, and businesslike clothes. His attention is unwavering. You know, being able to focus on one person or work at a time is a superpower in a world where distractions abound. And it's a superpower that men who are Sigma males have. Sigma males put their all into all they do, whether it is working, reading, conversing with others, or just thinking. They are focused. They seem to have erected a mental wall around themselves that nothing at all can breach. They can study more, do more, and explore deeper thanks to their capacity to focus and tune out distractions. Observe their actions when working on a task. Do they disregard the world outside, the people around them, or their phones? When they are having a discussion, do they pay close attention and listen closely to the other person? Do they work without being distracted by the commotion and activity surrounding them? He moves more quickly than most people do. It concerns their gait as well. Strange, huh? But bear with me. Sigma males tend to move faster than average people. But intent is just as important as speed. They are traveling with purpose, they are not hurrying. They move quickly and with determination. It seems as though they are intent on arriving at a certain place. They save time, they don't drag, they don't zigzag. They value their time highly and don't squander it. It's not about speed, though. Observe how they walk. It's confident and lengthy. A Sigma male will frequently be seen with his headphones on, lost in the realm of audio, be it podcasts, audiobooks, or music. Sigma males utilize this as a means of establishing their territory or as a means of learning and developing constantly. They're not only listening to up-to-date singles or appealing pop tunes. No, Sigma males are probably consuming intelligent audiobooks, podcasts, or thought-provoking music to keep their intellect nourished. They're improving themselves, broadening their minds, and learning new things during their free time. Even when they are listening to music, they frequently do it as a form of escape, turning off the outside world and indulging themselves in their thoughts. It's a form of meditation, a means to maintain concentration and center amid life's craziness. He constantly takes good care of his hair. Let's speak about looks, hair in particular. Although he might not be the loudest person in the room, a Sigma male is intelligent and well-groomed. He constantly keeps his hair well-groomed and polished. It is an indication of his self-control, self-respect, and discipline. Sigma males are aware that appearances speak louder than words and that first impressions count. It's about respect for oneself, not about conceit. They are aware that maintaining a neat appearance contributes to their entire public persona and serves as a quiet declaration. He's got elegant shoes on. Let's take a final look at the earth. You heard correctly, the shoes. Sigma males have an eye for elegant shoe selection. Quality and style are more important than price tags or fancy labels. It demonstrates their self-respect, attention to detail, and discipline. A Sigma male is aware that a person's shoes may reveal a lot about them. They select footwear that is fashionable, robust, and comfy. Their footwear is a reflection of their independence and practicality. It demonstrates that their only goal is to impress themselves. Now that you've watched this basic guide on identifying a Sigma male, congratulations. Take note of your surroundings now. Perhaps you will see a Sigma male or discover that you possess certain Sigma male characteristics. Being a Sigma male is more than merely identifying one. Give up following and take the lead. Take the initiative and begin making decisions on your own. Make a statement with your actions rather than just words by standing tall and feeling proud. Thanks for watching. Enjoyed discovering the Sigma male traits? Show some love. Like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Don't miss the next insightful content. Check out the video on your screen. Let's build this community together. See you in the next one.